I'm going to open the screen up to here. Perfect. So I think we're on.
Yay.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. So I have someone really special as our speaker and guest today to talk to you guys about the power and healing power of food for someone who has a diagnosis that many people would be told that it's chronic and it has to do with inflammation and autoimmunity. So here I'm going to turn over. I have my friend nurse here, coworker, Stacey Rios, who has been such a champion for patients who have autoimmune disease through her own journey. And so I'm going to have her take away and tell you a little bit about who she is and what has brought her here.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having this discussion. It is so important that we talk about our lifestyle and our food choices and how it affects our health. So thank you for taking this time to do this. So I was diagnosed with lupus in 2012, and some of my symptoms, I had, my blood pressure could not stay up. It was constantly dropping to the point that I was passing out constantly. That was one of the biggest things for me, was my blood pressure and my heart, how it was affecting my heart. And I didn't have to go through a lengthy diagnosis. I know so many lupus patients do have really lengthy diagnosis because it's hard to diagnose lupus. It's based off of symptoms and labs and so much. But for me, I got diagnosed pretty quick. I had an amazing doctor, and I got diagnosed pretty quick. But that was back in 2012 when this whole journey started.
Wow. So that is probably, are you hearing some sounds here? No, maybe it's my phone. Okay, never mind. So, so you were diagnosed with heart and blood pressure problem, which is probably not one of the most talked about symptoms when it comes to lupus. And I do, from my experience, I see when people are diagnosed with lupus or they go to their doctor with symptoms that may be an autoimmune, some people feel like they're crazy because there's like no one thing you can point at. It's not like a bone fracture. It's not like you have just a rash, because it comes and goes.
Yeah.
And it's so great that you had a physician who listened to what you were going through and put a lot of the puzzles together and was able to spare you from that really long diagnostic journey, like chasing the zebra.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. Yeah, she really stepped up for me. Being a nurse, I know how important it is to pay attention to all of those little things that our bodies are feeling and experiencing and going through. And when you're going through the process of trying to get diagnosed to figure out what's wrong, you're going and getting so many labs and so many diagnostic tests and so many different office visits and this doctor and that specialist. And it's a lot. And so as a nurse, I put together my own little chart for me. So it was a chart of my own labs, my own diagnostics, what I was feeling, just little things. And I put it all in a binder because it was just so much. And my doctor, I had been a longtime patient of hers already for several years, probably a good 5-10 years. So she had known me already. She knew me healthy and she knew something was wrong. And so trying to figure it out, I had told her, look, I created a chart for myself. I don't know, what she stopped me and she goes, bring it in, bring it to me, please. If you don't mind letting me have it and look through it for a good week or two, there's got to be things in here that we're not seeing, that we're missing. And so I took it to her and she kept it for a good 2 weeks, and she started kind of going down the autoimmune, path, and got me set up with rheumatology and got all of that. But it was a doctor that I had built a rapport with already, who knew me healthy, who knew me unhealthy, and could see something's not right here. And I'm not just going to sit here and tell you, oh, well, it's just in your head. There's something wrong and we're going to figure it out together. So I was so blessed to have her as, my front line, getting me the help and the referrals that I needed. She was a huge blessing for sure.
Well, that's great. And I
Yeah.
would say one thing is for anybody watching this, if you have a symptom or something that you can't explain, it's always a good idea to rewrite down and make a record. You are the best historian of your own illness.
Nice.
And the doctors, no matter what they do, they don't always ask all the questions. And sometimes stuff that we don't even think of is always so helpful when you
Yeah.
might think this is extraneous, unnecessary information, but it may be very useful.
It is. Those little details matter. And, I tell my patients all the time, make notes in your phone of the good things that you're feeling and the bad things on a day-to-day basis, because those little things make a difference. And when you start to keep track of, did you sleep better? Did you eat better? What are you feeling? Those little things do add up. And sometimes when it's 2 months until you go see your follow-up appointment with your doctor, in those 2 months, you forget what's going on. You forget what's happening. And so it's like, yeah, I think this is going on. I think, so to be able to have that record of, hey, these were some of the changes that I noticed, to be able to communicate that, like you said, just those little details do matter. They
Yeah.
really do.
So I have a couple questions to kind of help us move this forward, but mainly I want to talk about some of the side effects you had from your medication, because it looks like you went through the whole therapy for many, many years.
Yeah.
And also want to talk about for listeners, what was the final point that made you actually make this huge change? And we want to talk about what are some of the challenges you've had and your recommendation for people who have an autoimmune diagnosis or think they may have something like that. What are some of the first steps to help them get started? So we'll start from the first question, and that is, when your doctor diagnosed you, got the diagnosis, you were sent to a team of specialists. What were some of the side effects you were getting from medications?
So right off the bat, they put me on steroids, heavy, heavy, heavy steroids. And within a 3-month period, I would say even probably less than 3 months, I gained 60 pounds. And that in itself was so hard for my body to handle. My body was already going through so much and so depleted that having that extra weight on just wiped me out. So that was a huge side effect that I noticed right away. But not just that, but all of the medications. With lupus, it's a lot of trial and error because every patient is unique. Every person feels things differently. So our symptoms are changing day to day to day to day. I mean, one day I could have the most excruciating chest pain and feel like my heart is in like a barbed wire grip. And the next day it's perfectly fine. The next day, though, I might have a rash all over my body, so it was constantly changing, that it makes it very hard to tailor a medication regime for each person that works, because it can be too much or too little. It has to be monitored so close. And that was so with the steroids, that was one thing. So the rheumatologist and the endocrinologist that I was seeing had pumped me so full of steroids. But my primary doctor, the one who saw all of this with me, the one who took my chart home, she was saying, she's like, no, this is too much. They're giving you too much because your body is reflecting it. Your body would not be doing this if it was at a good balance. It's too much steroids. They've got to adjust it and they need to tailor it for you. And as I'm communicating that to my endocrinologist and rheumatologist, they're like, no, she doesn't know what she's talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. This is what you need. And I'm like, I feel worse than I did then, And so then that starts down the rabbit hole of, well, what are you feeling? Let me give you this pill for that side effect and this pill for that side effect, So it started out, weight gain, but for me, I also lots of stomach upset, like severe abdominal cramping, constipation. I mean, when you're on all of those different medications, it's hitting your gut and your gut is wreaking havoc. And so for me, that was a huge part, was all of the intestinal issues that came with it. but it was the answer to all of that was, well, here's another pill for that side effect. Oh, well, here's another pill for this side effect. And it got to a point where it was like, I'm on so many medications for all these other side effects, and I'm still feeling miserable. Like, this can't be the way. And it was just a really hard journey, because as you're talking to other lupus patients or autoimmune patients in general, this is the struggle. Like, it's like, okay, I need these meds to stay alive and to stay functioning, but I feel horrible. And now I'm adding all these other meds for all these other side effects. Like, it just didn't seem right. And my body just knew that something just wasn't still right. This wasn't the answer. And that's when things started changing for me. But it was a long several years of being truly on my deathbed. I mean, so weak that I couldn't even hold a cup in my hand because my hands just didn't have that strength. My joints would hurt so bad that I couldn't hold it. So it was a lot of years of being in my bed, just debilitated. I lived in a 2-story house, and my kitchen was downstairs, but my bedroom was upstairs. And there was so many days and nights where I couldn't go get food because I couldn't physically make it from upstairs to downstairs to get the food. And so what my family did as a solution to help was we got a microwave and put it up in my room and a little mini fridge so that I could have some, little ready, heat them up, easy to go meals. And if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have been getting any food because I just couldn't do it. I physically could not go up and down and up and down. So it was really hard. But when I started looking at what I was eating, what I was able to eat, those prepackaged foods that are filled with preservatives and ingredients that I can't even pronounce, it's like, okay, is this really helping me or not? I need nutrition, but I don't know that this is it, And so it was just a really hard journey, a really hard several years of surviving. That's what so many autoimmune patients are doing, is surviving.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at you now, and I've always seen you walk so fast and move nonstop. It's so crazy to hear and imagine you being so bedridden where just going upstairs in your own home is a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, to really get humble and put it out here, like, I had to crawl to the bathroom all the time just to get from my bed to the bathroom. I did not have the physical strength to sit up. I didn't have the physical strength to put one foot in front of the other. I literally could just get on the ground and then just be like, okay, I gotta get there. I gotta get there, and literally crawl my way slowly and taking breaks and resting on the ground as I'm crawling to the bathroom, So it is debilitating, and it is so hard for the individual to go through that, because prior to that, I had been healthy and active and doing things. So when something like that takes place, it really rocks your world to the core inside. It starts changing and affecting your beliefs and your thought process and your perspective. I mean, it really starts changing everything.
I hear you. I hear you from my heart. I want to tell people what autoimmune things, immunity kind of means. It means that we have an immune system that's innate to help protect us from all kinds of infections outside. At some point, there might be a switch that gets turned on. Then your immune system, what's supposed to protect you, start seeing your own body, certain parts of your own body as an enemy, and starts attacking. So that's why it's called autoimmune. And lupus happens to fall under one of the autoimmune disorders that we often see. Other diseases that fall in this category that people may have heard of, and so that you guys can see with the breadth of the autoimmune disease, it could be something like inflammatory bowel disease, where your gut's being attacked by your own immune system. And also involves things like Sjogren's syndrome or scleroderma or myositis, polymyositis, or even psoriasis when you have scaly white scales on your skin. So there are many forms. Unfortunately, autoimmune, when you have here such a big system attacking your own body, it can have many different manifestations, and also arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. I wanted to ask you, so you had 7 years of debilitating life and you tried everything that's out there.
Yes.
What was the turning point here? Like, what happened for you?
So for me, everybody had been telling me, you've got to give up meat, don't eat meat, or give up gluten, don't eat dairy. Like everybody was telling me all these little things like, don't eat this, don't eat that, eat this, eat that, and I would do these changes. I would make these changes. I would cut out dairy. I would cut out gluten. I would cut out all this stuff for periods of time. But I just really didn't feel like a huge difference. I mean, when you're on your deathbed like that, it's going to take something big to like really start to shift everything. And for me, it wasn't. And not only that, but it was the effort into changing all of what I was eating as well. And so for me, it was a slow process and just learning more. I had somebody that had come into my life that was really passionate about plant-based diets. And, up until that point, I did not eat any vegetables, any fruit. I did not like it. It was not happening. But this person had really started sharing with me how plant-based foods can be not only, good, but convenient, and they can just really fill you up and taste good. And up until that point, that hadn't been my experience. And so when this person had started preparing meals and cooking things, and I'm like, what am I eating? And they're like, don't worry about it. Just eat it. Do you like it? And then I'm like, yeah, it's really good. And then come to find out it's all plant-based stuff. So that kind of started piquing my interest. And this, like I said, this person was very passionate about plant-based foods and its effects on health. And so I started really looking into more, dietary changes and the effects of food on our body. It wasn't until I had done with our church, we do prayer and fasting. And up until that point, I really hadn't done that, wasn't sure like what exactly is this? I've heard of it, but don't really know. And when you get down to it, it's just a matter of giving something up. And in that time, replacing it with prayer time with God. And so for me, during that season and during that prayer and fast, God was just speaking to my heart so clearly. If I did not provide it for you, it's not food. And I had been watching some documentaries, and one of them hit it so spot on. We don't eat food, we eat food-like products. And when I started thinking about that, how many things I'm eating that are coming from a lab, that are coming from some manufacturing plant, that's not food. If God didn't provide it for me, it shouldn't be going in my mouth. So during that fast, I really felt it on my heart. If it's not fruits, veggies, and meats, that's it. It doesn't go in your mouth. And I was feeling that with such conviction in my heart that it was like, okay, I felt like this is the key to my healing. And for me, like I said, I had changed certain things prior to that. I had given up dairy. I had given up, all that stuff, but it didn't really make a difference. It wasn't until this fast that was 21 days where I went 21 full days of nothing but fruits, veggies, and meats. And that was it. No condiments, no seasonings were okay, but nothing else. And I would look at all of the ingredients of anything that I was doing. If it was not a pure ingredient, if I could not pronounce it, if I did not know exactly what it was, then I wasn't eating it, because I knew that that was then manufactured. And manufactured food is not food, and it was not what my body needed. So during that 21 days of eating nothing but fruits, veggies, and meats, I started to feel such a physical shift in my body. I would say probably about the 2-week mark is when I really could feel something changing in my body, and I could feel something shifting. I was feeling better. I had energy. I felt like I was coming back to life. But it took that commitment and that all in. I'm going to do this all in for 21 days. And what ended up happening is on that 20th day, so many things had been changing in my life, not just how I was feeling physically, but because I was taking that time also to pray, there was so much healing that I was doing on those emotional wounds. And that is something that I think for autoimmune diseases, that it's so important that we address that as well. I had read an article when I was going to school for my master's. It was this article discussing the effects on our health. So, an actual, physical damage can come from trauma, but it was saying that autoimmune diseases stem from unhealed emotional wounds. And when I read that, like, it resonated with me so much, because I knew I had so many emotional issues that I had just stuffed down. I'm a big time stuffer and compartmentalizer, let me get this into my nice little box and stuff it down.
I feel like a lot of women are. A lot of women are.
We do. And for me, I was go, 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 go. I can take it. Whatever's coming my way, I'll handle it. We're good. I can take it. And so that had been my lifestyle, was very go, 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 very stressful, very, just not really taking any downtime, not processing any of the emotions that I have felt, not processing any of the life events that I had gone through. And so for me, during those 21 days of prayer and fasting, praying started to reveal so many places in my heart that needed to be healed. And as I started to address that as well, like I said, on that 20th day, something was shifting in me, and I knew that I didn't want it to end that next day. So it was like, even though the fast was technically going to be over, God was doing something in my life that I wanted to keep going for, and I wanted to keep leaning into that. So I did. What ended up starting out as a 21-day fast ended up turning into a 40-day fast that changed my life, because I started healing those deep emotional wounds. I started facing them. I started realizing that the life that I was living wasn't going to give me life anymore, that it was leading me to a different path. And if I didn't start making changes, then I could see where that path was going. So many doctors had spoken into me, this is going to be the rest of your life. This is how you're going to live. You're always going to be on pain meds. You're always going to be on all these medications because you need it to function. That's what was getting spoken into me. And so that's what I was taking in. And I'm like, okay, well, this is it. I'm not the doctor. This is it. This is the rest of my life. But it was during that 21 days of prayer and fasting that I started seeing, no, this isn't how it is. This isn't how it has to be. And that's when things started radically changing for me all the way around. I was leaning in and praying and healing those emotional wounds, and had radically changed my diet. And I felt a physical difference on all levels that was just indescribable. Like it truly, what I physically felt, I could physically feel my body healing inside. And I know that that sounds so weird and so crazy, but I could feel it. I could feel something changing. And I knew I wanted to keep going with it. I didn't want that to stop. So that's, like I said, what started as a 21-day prayer and fasting turned into 40 days. But that's what radically changed my life, was that season of leaning in and healing and eating foods that were nourishing my body. And that changed everything.
Wow, Stacey, this is so powerful just listening to your journey, and thank you for sharing the words that you have been using this last few minutes, radical, shifting. And I've never, this is the first time I heard processed food described as if I don't provide it, if nature doesn't provide it in Mother Nature, it's not for you. That is mind blowing.
Yeah.
This is the first time I have heard it said that way. It's so crazy that you had heard God saying that to you,
Yeah.
but it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And I do find that there's so much knowledge out there and so many ways to find some like pieces of knowledge about how to heal autoimmunity that people often get lost in the way because it's also very confusing. Like you have tried cutting out certain things, but you've never had such a radical,
Yeah.
complete fast. And it's also really amazing that it only took you about 2 weeks for you to start feeling better, and
Yeah.
that you immediately in that fast made the connection between the physical healing with the food that you're taking in addition to the emotional. And I think it's so great that you touched upon the emotional distress was internally. That's also really important when it comes to healing from something chronic. And it's very sad that many of us have been told, and even in medical school, we have learned all these steroids and treatments, the conventional ones, and we all know their side effects. But the idea is that this is just how it has to be. And it's so liberating to know, and from somebody that, because you have gone through it, what that means, that it's not a life sentence, and that
No.
you can
No.
make a change. So tell me what happened when you start doing all this, and what happened on the medical side and the physical. Is this just all internal, or did you have something on paper to show for it?
So I didn't need papers to show it because I could feel it. I knew that something was just healing in my body. I could just feel it. And it, like I said, it just sounded so crazy, but I knew that my body had been healed. But there is no cure for lupus. It can go in remission, but there is no cure for it. But I knew that what I was feeling was complete healing and restoration. And so I did go and get labs because I just wanted to check and make sure that everything was good. Since I was a teenager, my lab work has been all over the place always. And so for me to go, and I was like, let me just see what eating pure food like this, let me just see the effects on my actual labs. What is it doing inside my body? So I got my lab work, and for the first time ever in my life, everything was in the green. Everything was within normal parameters. Everything was balanced for the first time in my life. And it was like, oh my gosh, like I knew it, I could feel it inside, but to see it on the paper too was just like, wow, like it's not just in my head. This is really happening. So just like when they're sitting there telling you it's all in your head, it's all in your head, it's like there is some truth to that. When doctors do say, oh, well, it's all in your head, it's just in your head, it's like, okay, there is some truth to that because there is some healing and there is some mindset changes that we need to make to facilitate those changes. And after doing that, I got to see it and I got to see that blood work. And like I said, for the first time ever, everything was in alignment. And I was like, wow, just how incredible to see that, because the only thing that had changed was my food and my stress and my prayer life. So those were the things that I had changed. And that's what shifted within my blood work. Everything became in alignment.
Yay! And I want to mention, and you didn't say this, but did you say in that time you also took yourself off of some medication? I don't always recommend this. I still recommend some guidance with your physician, but you being a healthcare professional yourself, I think you took the liberty of doing that.
Yes. So during that, what turned into the 40-day fast, it was probably about around day 30 or so, right around there, because I had still been on all of my lupus medications. And one of those was a chemo med. And you need to take that, as prescribed, it's timed, it's, it's a heavy duty med. And so I had been on all of these meds all this time for years. And about the 30-day mark, I just kind of felt it on my heart again, like, you don't need these pills. You don't need this medicine. Let me heal you. And that was scary for me, especially as a nurse, knowing how medicines work, knowing that you don't tell a patient to just stop a medication and abruptly stop either, so it was like, that was a real battle with me, because I could hear God telling me, like, you don't need it. I want you to come off of it. And I'm like, ooh, but God, I'm not so sure about this. And so that was a struggle, but I was really praying on it. And for me personally, I just felt like I need to stop everything, wean off of everything. So I did do it the right way and weaned off everything, but I ended up weaning off of every single medication and still stayed perfectly fine, perfectly healthy, feeling incredible, because that was one thing that I didn't know was, coming off all these meds, is it going to start messing with my heart again? Like what could happen here? And I just really felt led that, okay, I don't need these meds. And so I started coming off and wean myself off of every single pill that I was taking, and still felt absolutely incredible because of what I was still doing. I was still implementing the healthy diet and, the prayer and combining everything. And I think that's important that we address too. It's a totality. This, healing the body, it's mind, body, and soul. Like, that's what makes us up as an individual completely. And I think it's so important that we address all of it. If we just address the physical, those other parts are going to affect it. It affects everything. So for me, this was part of my journey that I was walking on and what I was doing. And I just felt led to do that and did it. And like I said, weaned off of everything and still just felt incredible by implementing all of those. But yeah, to come off of all those meds that I had been on for the last 8 years, 7 years at that point, that was huge. That was huge. Like I said, from a nursing standpoint, I'm like, no, 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 no. But there was just something in me that knew what my body needed. We know our bodies best. We really do. And our bodies are incredible healing machines if we allow it the space and the time to heal. And if we allow it the opportunity and give ourselves the time to give it what it needs. And that's, this healing process isn't a quick fix. It's not just a quick thing, and it's not just a one and done. It's something that we have to continually be working at and continually be checking with. And so for me, that was a hard part to come off of that, but then to see everything was good and to go back to my doctors after, because I did go back and check in with them and told them what I had done. And thankfully my doctors are amazing, that they really believe in their patients, and that our patients know their bodies best. And they knew that with me, and they were very encouraging, and they could see the transformation that took place. To go from bedridden to completely healed, they could see it. So they're like, obviously whatever you're doing is working, keep going. But, definitely something that, should be guided with the doctor. But yeah.
Yes, disclaimer. I think she did it without the guidance, but I would say in general, I think healthcare professionals were very protective. And it's not that I don't believe that anyone's body has the ability to do a lot of internal healing in these processes, but there are so many like side effects, and there's also rebound effects if you wean off the medication too quickly, that there is that part where, as a physician, even very integrative myself with my patients, I want to give them the ability to have that strength of the health so that they can be off medication, or be as on as little as possible, because you're an incredible healing machine. Our bodies are made incredibly healing as is, and it's good to remember how strong and powerful you are. But you have to understand what if you were on medication, it's medications that's doing and blocking something in order for it to work, and for it to, if you were to take it totally off, your body needs time to adjust to that. So that's a disclaimer.
Yes.
Do it with a healthcare supervision.
Yes.
So a couple more, just a few more questions to wrap this up. Now, if you, what would you say to a fellow person who has been recently diagnosed with a new autoimmune, or has been told for many years they have this and they can't get rid of autoimmune disorder, or they think they may have it? What are some of the, give us your 3 steps to get started on this journey to reverse your diet or reverse your symptoms?
First, I would say be mindful of what you speak over yourself and what you allow others to speak into you as well. The power of our words and the power of our thoughts are so transformative one way or the other. So first, it's about being mindful of what's up here and those thoughts that are going through your head. So for those that feel like they have no hope, that this is just how the rest of my life is going to be, this is it, I'm always going to be in pain, I'm always going to be on all these meds, the doctors, there's no cure, there's no nothing, don't believe it. Don't receive it. Don't allow that to come in, because nobody knows your future. Nobody here on earth knows what your plans are. Nobody knows what your course is. So I would say first and foremost, protect your mind.
Mind over body.
Yes,
Body.
yes, yes. Aside from that, I would say, whatever is deep inside your heart that you have locked away, that you don't want to address, that you have stuffed down, that you have compartmentalized, it's time to start unpacking that. And it's time to start addressing that, because your body needs it. Your body needs that healing. And as the incredible machine that our bodies are, they need tune-ups. They need care. They need that maintenance. And like I said, healing isn't just a one and done situation. This is the rest of your life. This is a long-term situation. You're not just going for a real quick, short thing. This is the rest of your life. So be gentle with yourself, be kind with yourself, protect your mind, and start unpacking those emotional bags that are in there, because they are affecting the health in some way, shape, or form. And I think that is so important that we do address that the mind, body, and soul is all operating together. And then with that, whatever you are connecting to, whether it's God, a higher power, spirituality, whatever, connect to it, because there is an incredible power that goes beyond our own situation. So for me, one thing that I was learning with this was, it's been very humbling, but when I felt that radical healing, I experienced one of God's miracles. I mean, I physically felt it. And so when I felt it, I'm like, I don't understand how people can know that this food is hurting them and still choose to eat it. I don't understand. And that was my thought. I don't understand how, insert, whatever. And over the last year, God has given me a new perspective on things that I did not understand. And what I have learned is that I can't do things on my own accord and in my own power. There is only so much that I can do. And for me, I have been a control freak my whole life. That has been my Achilles heel. And, so for me, surrendering to that and surrendering to the notion of what the medical community believes, what science says, that's not the end all be all. For me, there was something else. And so I needed to have the power that God gave me to get through that. And so I'm currently walking that out now, that it's hard. It's hard to make those changes. It's hard to change your daily food intake. And so I can't do it on my own. I need God right there with me. And so I would say with that, as you're healing and unpacking those emotional wounds, you can't do it on your own. So make sure that you're getting connected to something else, counseling, your spirituality, God, whatever is speaking to you. I would really encourage you to just really dive in, because it is a totality of things, mind, body, and soul. And then the third that I would just touch on is the foods. It is, I believe wholeheartedly that it is our foods that is making us so sick as a society. We are a society that is just rush, 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 and go, go, go. And how much can you get done in a day, that we don't take the time to prepare our meals, to cook our meals, to really savor our meals. It's just, how quick can I pop it in the microwave and be ready to go? But those quick shortcuts are having long-term effects. And so I would just really encourage anybody that food, not food-like products, but actual nutrition. One of the documentaries that I had seen as well was talking about, in our country, we have real high calorie foods and low nutrients. And in other countries, they have high nutrients and low calories. But here in America, it's just, things are just so processed and just so quick and fast paced and manufactured, that when you're getting those calories, but you're not getting the nutrients, your body still needs those nutrients. And so it's still hungry. And that's what I was finding myself. I'd be eating certain things, but I was still so hungry after I'd eat, because my body needed those nutrients. And because I wasn't getting it from the foods that I was eating, it was wanting more and more and more. And so I would just stuff it with the other prepackaged foods that still isn't giving me the nutrients that I needed. And so when I started shifting, and fruits, veggies, and meats, when I started shifting that, number one, I noticed that my appetite drastically went down. So instead of consuming a huge plate of all this packaged stuff, I was now eating a small plate of fruits, veggies, and meats, and I was so full. I would get to the point where I'm like, okay, I can't eat anymore. That does not happen with me. I am eating, stuffing, and there's always room for more. So for me, that was a huge shift that I noticed, that I am so full off of so little, because my body is getting the nutrients that it needed. And so that is a huge change. So I would just encourage anybody out there, if you're making those changes, I know it can be really hard to go all in. I know it can be hard to pass up that sugar, or whatever your weakness is, because we all have a, whatever that is, to really evaluate, is it healing my body or is it hurting my body? And for me, that was it's real interesting, the power of intuition with our body as well, because I could approach certain foods and it's almost like every fiber in my body would be like, no, like it doesn't want this. Versus other things where my body would suddenly start craving something that I've never had before in my life. And I'm like, why am I craving beets? I've never eaten a beet in my life. Why am I craving beets? But your body knows what it needs and what it doesn't want. And so listen to your body, give it more food, more nutrients, and see if you don't start noticing that shift. Because again, it's everything together. But when you start getting all of those things balanced, it starts to get easier to continue to make those changes. Like, it's hard to start unpacking that emotional baggage, but once you start and you start getting in, it's like, okay, it gets easier to process. And once you start making those changes with your food, it's hard at first, but it'll start to get easier. Your palate changes, your taste buds change. You start craving healthy foods when maybe before you never did in your life. So our bodies are just so unique, and it's so important that we listen to our bodies and that we take action to heal our bodies. It's healing is not a passive sport. You have to be active in it, and it's hard sometimes, but it is so worth it if you're willing to go in and make those changes. Your body will demonstrate it. It will reflect in your body.
Stacey, you cover so many good points. These are, I don't think I could have said it any close anything that good. The three things that people should get started, and the most important part actually starts, like you said, in the mind, in respecting yourself, and also asking for help, because what we do when we make these changes goes against every commercial on TV, goes against every magazine or cover or social media that make you think that your body wants something that's processed. And I would say that, it, in some ways, a lot of the resistance I get from patients who have, when we talk about, hey, let's make changes to your diet, they're like, well, but I really love bread, or I really, really love these things, that dairy and cheese that you're making me give up. And I would say, from the medical point of view, it's not that you have to completely give these up totally, because I think our health is then on a spectrum of total health and versus high inflammation. And so when you are doing all the processed food, you may be very close to the burnout phase. So every little thing that you're eating is just kind of like micro, like blast over there. Whereas if you are nurtured yourself back to after the end of the fast, where your health is very stable, then there is some room for an occasional adult cravings or like a piece of cake. So it's not all off. And I also want to say that it's just that it's also kind of redefining what health means, right? A lot of people say, well, I want to live my life to the fullest. So what exactly does that look like? Does that mean that your fullest life means that you want to eat a cake every single day and then have a hard time going up the stairs and be completely out of breath? Or does health means you can go and pick up your bags and go travel and go walk your dog and go play with your kids? What exactly does life mean to you? And it may change, shift. That's why I think when you talk about healing what's emotional inside, when you hone in and just start working through that, it becomes very clear what's the most important things to you versus the things that you thought you had to have in order to feel secure and comfortable.
Yep, for sure. And that's something that I'm currently struggling with, that is addictions, and food addictions are rampant. And I think as a society, we just accept these things or even encourage them. I mean, our coffee addictions, that we can't start our day without coffee, or, I have to have dessert after every meal, or, just whatever it is. For me, I have noticed, so for me, part of that healing journey was learning that food is not my comforter. Food is not where I go to release things. Food is not where I go to get full. Food is not where I go to to feel good. Food is to nourish our bodies. That's it. That's it. Food is
That's an
supposed
Oprah
to.
moment. That's an Oprah moment.
Yeah.
Just nourish. Yes.
Like that food is to nourish our bodies, and that's it. So if I'm going to food for anything else, I need to start doing that deep work to figure out, why am I going to this? Why am I craving this? Why do I want this so bad? And that's been part of my journey all through this, because food is good. The bread and the sugars and the ice cream and the cakes and all of that. Like, I love it. For me, I have an unhealthy relationship with those things because they have brought me comfort and they have made me feel good. And they've hurt me, though, on the inside. So that's something that I have had to identify with is, again, is this hurting my body or is it healing my body? Is this nourishment or is this poison? And is this more, I've had to start looking at food like a drug, you know, because there are so many ingredients in our preservative filled foods that are addictive chemicals that we don't realize as a whole. And so for most people, they would be able to have, you know, a piece of cake maybe once a week and be perfectly fine and be perfectly satisfied. For me, that's not the case. So for me, it's been harder to identify those mental connections between what I'm going to food for, what I'm feeling, and can I continue that and keep my boundaries? Like you were saying, when you get to that point where you feel good and you feel healthy and you can indulge every now and then, for some people, that works perfectly fine. For me personally, I'm discovering that I can't have just one piece of cake because that's it. It's like putting water on Gizmo. Like that's it. I am just going crazy. I turn into the Tasmanian devil. I'm eating every chocolate I can find. Like, so for me, I have to really evaluate those boundaries and really evaluate why I'm going to them. Again, you know, why am I feeling like I really want this right now? And is it really worth it? Because I know I'm going to be struggling. If I go and take this one bite, I'm going to be struggling. So is it really worth it? And for me, that's been part of my healing journey. Again, you know, just really evaluating what I'm going to food for, because food is only supposed to nourish my body.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to it for anything else, I need to evaluate why.
Thank you for drawing that parallelism between food and addiction. Just like, and I think a lot of people are on the fence when it comes to, oh, why can't you eat what you love to eat? But think of it, if with it's sometimes for some people, food is an addiction, just like alcoholism. I have friends who can't drink any alcohol whatsoever at all because it just completely derails them. And there's people who can have a glass of wine at dinner and totally have a very functional life.
Yeah.
It comes down to, like you said, knowing your body and knowing what your balance is, what you need to stay yoked with yourself,
Yeah.
and your spirit. That is the most important thing. And is there anything else that you want to share? I mean, I'm so grateful for you sharing this journey, because I think it's one thing, me as a doctor standing there and listening and telling you what I think you should be doing. And it's different from another person who has gone through all of that.
Yeah.
Um, and this is something that I tell my patients all the time. Like, it takes time to teach people, reteach people how to think and learn, think about their health, and think about, it's giving people that power back, that yes, you have the power to get back to health, and that, but it takes, you have to feel that you deserve it. And
Yeah.
it starts with the self and mental work and mindset. And it may take me a couple visits and may take a couple food journals to kind of dissect everything down, but it's not impossible, and it's so rewarding. And I believe in, this is the kind of transformative health that we really all want for our patients and loved ones.
For sure. You know, one thing with autoimmune diseases, you know, they can often get triggered overnight, but they don't develop overnight. It's usually a long term of your body struggling, long term of your body trying to do what it can do. So have grace with yourself. Understand that healing is a process. It's not just a straight line from point A to point B. It's a spirally hot mess. But if you go through it and stay persistent and don't lose hope, that's the key. Don't lose hope. Don't believe that this is it. There can be more. There can be change. And you are very limited to what we are able to control, but we can control what's right here. And this is where it starts. And to start changing that mindset of one of, this is just how my life is, to this isn't how my life is going to stay. And what do I need to do to make those changes and start taking those steps? It's not easy. Like I said, unpacking that emotional baggage is really hard, no part of healing is easy. And I think that's something that we have changed with medicine and the pills, the quick fixes that cure everything. It's not, it's a band-aid to the bigger problem. And when you're really wanting to heal, it's not a quick fix, and you need to be prepared. But when you get to that mind space where you are ready to take those steps to change your life, you have the power to do that. And you are able to do that and start taking those steps and have grace with yourself as you're going through this journey, because it is a healing journey. So have grace and be mindful of what you're putting into your body, both through your mouth, through your ears, through what you're seeing. Be mindful of what you're taking in, because it's all affecting your body. And you can either choose to surround yourself with things that are going to heal your body or hurt your body. And you've got to just start processing and unpacking the choices that we're making so that we can continue to make those better choices. So for anybody out there that's struggling, just stay with it, keep going. There is hope. Don't let anybody tell you that this is how things are. You can change them. There is change that can be made that can change your life. And I am a living, walking, breathing testimony to what can change and transform when you allow yourself to be open to the healing. And so I just want to encourage anybody out there, just stay with it and don't give up hope.
Wow. Yes, you are. Thank you for saying that so gracefully. You are, from somebody who's been on medications for 7 years, for somebody who is felt like she was on her deathbed, from not being able to go up the stairs or go downstairs to go eat, to having a fully functional life and working and doing the things that you love. This is definitely one of those moments that help us rethink what we think we knew, and I think rethink our own limitations. So
Yeah.
thank you, Stacey Rios, so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thank you for having me. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
I will be linking below some of the documentary stuff that she's talking about, some books and some articles I think that will be helpful for you guys to help you get started on your journey. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.